Absolutely. Under the bank, so they're precise. But there was a lobby, but this lobby worked first with in an academic environment, but people had argued, a lot of academics, going back to removing this distinction between banks and non-bank financial intermediaries. They didn't believe this was not a rigorous enough separation. So that gave them intellectual, what you might give weight. At the same time, they had found enough political support by being Treasury secretaries that it got there. The communists used to call it, what is it, infiltration? There was another term for it. I've forgotten it. So that's what it is, and there they are. And very often it's just these people there, and they're looked upon as the great and the good, but they keep at the back of the mind the interests of the fellow workers in Wall Street. And this, I think, is seen in the consequences. Done extremely well. I mean, if you joined Goldman Sachs and fortunately become a partner in 1998, I mean, we're not talking of millions, we're talking of billions, billions and billions and billions. Well, the British, well, I don't know what I call it comparative advantage. Anyway, revealed comparative advantage in finance. I mean, there's a very good book by Kane and Hopkins about the economic history of Britain. And they call it the cult of gentlemanly capitalism. Now, this is fit in very well with cultural mores which go back a long, long time. Now, industry has never been, it started the Industrial Revolution, but the good and the great have never had their heart in industry. They lived in the north. They were not taking part in the glittering life in London, social, etc. Bankers are lovely. You can go in the morning to the city, make your pile, come in the afternoon, read, go to the opera, go to parties and what have you. And this, of course, is also the attraction for people from all over the world. I mean, why is London considered, until this non-dom tax, etc., started, with a marvelous place for youngsters to come and make a living? So that attraction is still there. But it seems to me that now there's serious challenges. I mean, because after all, economic power, so London will not cease being an important financial sector in New York. But I think if either China and India now can get their act together, I see both have to make their currencies convertible. They've got to create all the infrastructure with this. I still think India has probably got a better start because it's got a less of a financially repressed system than China. They will give both London and New York a run for their money. Well, you might be surprised with my answer. I don't know if you will be or not. Actually, the larger population in India and the fact that this is going to continue till 2050, this provides India with two great advantages. The most important one is it provides a demographic dividend because whilst China is going to face all the problems of an aging society, I think 2020 or 2030, India will still have a young population. It doesn't face till 2050. And during this period, when you've got this demographic transition going on, you get massive rises in savings. And this is what happened in East Asia. This is what happened in China. So the China's saving boom is going to come to an end fairly soon. And the trouble is, they have actually, what have they done? They've invested most of it in US bonds. Now, Bernanke, which I still firmly believe is not whatever they might say is still on the cards, organizes the great deflation. Only two ways in which you can pay off debts of that size. One is formally, disown them, which is what most Latin American countries do. And the second, if you're major key currency, etc., you inflate them away. It's called the euthanasia of the rentier, which has also got Keynes's blessing. So the Chinese, I'm afraid, so they really are stuck. They're now between a stone and a hard place because they've got this asset. That's why they're whining. They know what to do. And there are people are asking, you put $3 trillion of our savings into these declining assets, and nothing to show for it. Now, India, fortunately, is not made, it's built up reserves, in my view, well beyond what it needs. But still, it's still 200 billion is not the same as 300 trillion. 3 trillion, sorry. And secondly, with rising savings rates continuing, India is now just beginning, in my view. It's 10 years behind what China was in terms of its growth trajectory. So whereas China, I suspect, in about next 5-10 years will slow down, not to 4-5, but certainly come down from 10-11%. India now should be able to have growth rates above 10%, at least for the foreseeable future. So in that sense, this is the way. My prediction is by 2050, India will be much richer and in some senses, more powerful country. Because the second thing the demographic division does is provides a huge manpower, and one of the major uses of manpower in all these large countries is armies. So, you know, given that, you know, you can take your bet, but I would still bet on India on this one at the moment.
Do you think that Britain's quantitative easing is going to inflate our way out of debt?
There's no other way. Well, I think the UK, I seriously believe now, is on the track to going to the IMF. That the only person who can do what's needed now, as Callaghan found in the 70s, the Labour Party has done the will, despite all this brave talk about young George and David Cameron. I mean, they're all over the place. I think the only thing you've got to do is when whoever is in power, when people stop holding first US government bonds, the pound goes down the tube, they'll have to go exactly, make a dash to the airport and go to Washington and hope for a bailout. Well, we know what will happen. I mean, what happens then is you either disown, you just disown the debt, which is what most Latin American countries do. We can't pay. That's it. Or you then try and force cuts in spending, raising taxes to be able to service the debt. If you can't do it yourself because of political stalemate, that's what happened in the 1970s. Trade unions were allowed. So you go to the fund, and the fund insists they only give you money to tide over the time if you make all these cuts. It's a standard IMF program. I mean, country after country in the third world has done it. It gets you out of financial crisis, but, you know, you had to get rid of that political economy logjam. Now, the US, unfortunately, is too big and powerful to call in the IMF. So there's much more ruin left in the US than there is in the UK. If you had said 80 or 90, yes, but not 60 or no.
These things happen pretty fast. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you all for coming. I think we've had a really interesting evening. Let me urge you to form an orderly queue to buy Reviving the Invisible Hand by Deepak Lal, which I'm sure he will sign for you. Let me thank you on your behalf, our guest speaker, even though his message, I think, at the end was extremely worrying and depressing, but nevertheless probably realistic. So let me thank Deepak. And Deepak, thank you very much for pricking several balloons as to this crisis is all caused by bankers, for example. And to help you keep pricking balloons, here is an Adam Smith pin. Thank you very much indeed.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.